We often equate emotional maturity with age. The older you get, the more grown-up you're supposed to be, right? But for many women, life tells a different story. Despite doing everything right, education, career, relationships, there's an underlying sense of being stuck. The same emotional loops repeat, the same relationship patterns emerge. And fulfillment? Still elusive. Is this just irresponsibility? A refusal to grow up? Or is there something deeper at play, something hidden beneath the surface? Carl Jung believed that emotional immaturity isn't always a conscious choice. It can be a psychological trap, one shaped in childhood, nurtured by culture, and left unchallenged for years, especially for women. Society often demands emotional maturity from girls far too early. Be kind, be composed, be caring. But what if these expectations don't actually support real growth? What if they create a shell of maturity while the inner self remains undeveloped? When maturity is imposed instead of cultivated, it becomes fragile. Beneath the surface, unprocessed fears, unhealed wounds, and unconscious dependencies can keep a person emotionally frozen, no matter their age. Jung's psychological insights help us understand why this happens, and more importantly, how to break free. Because true maturity isn't about getting older, it's about becoming whole. If maturity doesn't naturally come with age, what stops it? Let's explore 3 powerful forces that often derail emotional growth in women. 1. Childhood overprotection. Some women grow up with love, but not freedom. When parents shelter a child from all difficulty, they prevent her from developing the tools of self-reliance. She's never taught how to make decisions, how to face discomfort, or how to handle failure. The result? A woman who may be competent on the surface, but secretly depends on others to guide her life. Whether it's a partner, a friend, or even social media, she constantly looks outside herself for direction and permission. Emotional pain that's never processed doesn't disappear. It just hides. Women who've faced betrayal, neglect, or emotional abandonment may internalize a deep fear of responsibility. Taking charge of life feels overwhelming, so they avoid it. They cling to familiar patterns, even unhealthy ones, because facing the unknown feels far worse. This fear can disguise itself as indecision, self-doubt, or even apathy. But underneath it is a wound waiting to be healed. 3. Cultural conditioning. From an early age, girls are praised for being sweet, likable, and selfless. Rarely are they encouraged to explore their individuality or assertiveness. Instead, they learn to measure their worth by how others see them. This training often produces women who are outwardly mature, but inwardly lost. Instead of knowing themselves, they become experts at being what others want them to be. Jung believed this disconnection from the true self is a kind of psychological sleepwalking, and to wake up, we must stop performing and start facing our inner reality. In mythology, there's the figure of the Puella Eterna, the eternal boy who refuses to grow up. But Jung also identified his female counterpart, the Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. She doesn't just avoid responsibility, she clings to youth. She resists the demands of adulthood not because she can't handle them, but because she doesn't know who she'd be without the dream of being rescued. Let's look at the traits of the eternal girl and how they show up in modern life. 1. Romantic idealism, waiting for a savior. The eternal girl believes that love will save her, that the right partner will complete her. She waits for the fairy tale ending, not realizing she's the only one who can write it. She may chase romantic highs but avoid emotional depth. She might idealize partners, only to be disappointed when reality doesn't match the fantasy. She often feels incomplete without a relationship because she hasn't yet built a relationship with herself. 2. Avoidance of structure and responsibility. Responsibility feels like a trap. She craves freedom, but doesn't understand that true freedom requires discipline. So she drifts. This shows up as bouncing between jobs, avoiding long-term plans, or constantly chasing new passions without ever seeing them through. Adult life feels boring, and she escapes into novelty and fantasy to avoid commitment. 3. Fear of aging, clinging to youth for identity. Youth is not just a phase, it's a mask. The eternal girl fears losing her beauty, charm, or playfulness because these have become her currency in the world. She resists growing older because she's never developed the inner qualities, wisdom, independence, resilience, that give life deeper meaning. Without youth, she fears she has nothing. Why is this mindset so common? Because our culture rewards it. In romantic films, the quirky, helpless, dreamy girl gets the guy. On social media, exaggerated innocence and superficial charm are celebrated. And the beauty industry, it makes billions by convincing women that youth equals value. Unlike men who are often pushed to become independent, assertive, and responsible, women are often encouraged to stay cute, agreeable, and non-threatening. Not just by others, but by the narratives they consume. And historically, it wasn't always like this. In past generations, women had enormous responsibility. Whether in homes, communities, or political movements, they often matured quickly. Not because they wanted to, but because life demanded it. Now, with more freedom comes a paradox, the freedom to avoid maturity. But this freedom isn't always liberation. Without inner development, it can become a trap. Jung believed immaturity isn't just a personal issue, it's a cultural one. And until society values depth, independence, and self-possession over appearance and likability, the eternal girl will keep getting applause. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is everything we suppress, everything we reject in ourselves because it feels unacceptable. For many women, the shadow isn't weakness, it's strength, it's ambition, assertiveness, anger, power. But these traits often clash with cultural expectations, so women hide them, not just from others, but from themselves, and instead of claiming their full identity, they perform a safer version of femininity. Let's look at what this can look like in real life. A woman acts ditzy to avoid intimidating others. She shrinks in meetings, even when she has great ideas. She stays in relationships where she's dependent because independence feels lonely or unnatural. She tells herself her dreams are too much and settles for less. In every case, immaturity becomes a survival strategy, a way to avoid criticism, rejection, or being seen as too strong. But true empowerment only comes when the shadow is integrated, not feared. What does it mean to truly grow up, not just physically, but psychologically? For Jung, the answer is individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming a whole, independent, self-aware individual. For women caught in the eternal girl mindset, this means facing the patterns that keep them stuck and stepping into their full power. Here's what that path looks like. 1. Radical self-honesty growth begins with truth. Many women suppress uncomfortable parts of themselves, ambition, anger, desire, because they've been told those parts are wrong. But to mature, these traits must be faced, understood and reclaimed. Nothing truly changes until it's brought into the light. 2. Letting go of external validation. Living for approval keeps a woman small. She becomes what others want, rather than who she really is. The shift begins when she starts making decisions based on values, not validation. When her sense of worth comes from within, not from likes, compliments, or romantic attention. 3. Integrating feminine and masculine energies. Jung believed that every person contains both feminine, emotional, intuitive, and masculine, logical, assertive energies. Many women are taught to embrace the feminine but reject the masculine. The result? Passivity, hesitation, fear of leadership. But true maturity means balancing both, being nurturing and strong, receptive and decisive, whole. 4. Taking full responsibility. The final and most powerful step is ownership. Owning your life, your choices, your path. No one is coming to save you, not a partner, not a parent, not a mentor. The moment a woman stops waiting and starts acting is the moment she steps into adulthood. Growing up isn't about age, it's about awakening. For many women, immaturity isn't a failure, it's a result of a culture that teaches dependence, discourages strength, and punishes depth. But that can change. The journey towards psychological maturity isn't easy. It requires courage. It demands self-reflection, and it asks you to let go of who you were so you can become who you truly are. To the woman who feels stuck, you're not broken. You're being called to reclaim your power, to face your shadow, to stop performing and start becoming. Not the eternal girl, but a whole, grounded, self-possessed woman. This is not the end of innocence. It's the beginning of wisdom,